Welcome to another episode of the Lockdown Podcast. Continuing to do as we do, we pick apart Raw and SmackDown. We are T minus 4 weeks from WrestleMania, and it does not seem like WWE has their shit together because, again, we're 4 weeks till WrestleMania, and we have a whopping 5 matches. So, there's just, it's just not working in WWE right now.
Mhm.
I don't know how, you're trying to build a strong WrestleMania and, talking about they said they wanted to do like it was like 7 or 8 matches a night or something that I heard inklings of. But it's like we have 5 right now. 5. And then we
Yeah,
have 7 other championships. We got the men's Raw, men's SmackDown, the men's IC, men's US, women's IC, women's US, and the women's tag team. And so that would only put us at 12. And if in years past they've basically done like 6 to 7 per night, and I feel like if they want to, like, there's got to be like, I feel like it should be treated like Night of Champions, where every championship is defended,
yep.
but they don't do that because what they've been doing and how in I think it was probably almost 2 years in a row where they had one of the men's championships literally on the Friday before WrestleMania.
Yeah, they
And that's
yeah.
absolutely insulting because some of the matches they've had the last couple years on the card would have been better suited for a Raw or SmackDown.
Yep.
So I think they definitely, ticket prices are bad enough. And if and the people that are paying said ticket prices, they want to get the best WrestleMania they've ever seen. And so I just, yeah, I think we're gonna have some good matches, but I really feel like we're not gonna be hitting the mark with at least half of them.
Yeah.
Um, but so Raw kicks off, and man, when they said Brock Lesnar, was gonna be there, and Seth came out and did his whole, disappear, kind of the group everything, and then he shows himself, and then, as Paul is kind of, him and Seth are kind of exchanging, obviously because you had Brock down there, so you're thinking that there's going to be something going on with Seth and Brock, thinking that, hey, maybe he'll be the person that's going to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and then the emergence of one Obafemi.
Mm, mm, mm.
And let me tell you that Brock could have not put over Obafemi any better. You know, and you see a little bit of the inkling when basically, Brock's like, "Hey, put your foot on my chest," like really, really, kind of giving Obafemi kind of a couple pointers, on the spot, and so now we're gonna get Brock Lesnar versus Obafemi, which I think is honestly better than Brock Lesnar versus Gunther.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think they've been really wishy washy now with Gunther after he lost the title, and now he's really not done a whole lot.
Mm.
Well, no, sorry, after he beat John Cena, yeah, John Cena, yeah. So
AJ
in
Styles.
in
Yep.
AJ Styles, and so like they haven't done anything with him since, and so now again 4 weeks till WrestleMania, like what are you gonna come up with, to fill this card because I feel like Gunther needs to be on the card, but what who like I don't want to see Gunther versus Age or versus Dragon Lee at WrestleMania. That doesn't really appease me. That is a a Raw or SmackDown kind of match. So, I guess, we have 4 weeks, I guess, hopefully this week we get some matches, maybe some qualifiers, maybe we get, something in regards to a ladder match for, the IC. I think that, that's been done before and that's exciting doing a ladder match. I definitely think, you know, they have to do something. And I think one of those is, El Grande Americano and the original El Grande Americano, where it's a mask for mask match. That has to be one of the WrestleMania matches. Like, there's no other way around it. There's and honestly, El Grande Americano is 10 times better than the original Americano. Not even just from like the appearance. Obviously, he has his two goons, Rayo and Bravo, but he also can actually speak Spanish and like speak it and talk it, and he's not speaking Spanglish. And so I hope that we get this match and the El Grande Americano beats the original. We have to unmask, and then we obviously see the one Chad Gable. Now we had a couple matchups in weeks past, basically building to. We had the gauntlet match to basically who would face AJ Lee, and Bayley won that. And we talked about it beforehand. About these wrestlers that come back, even if it was a couple years, let alone 10 years. That there's gonna be ring rust, whether you've been in the PC or not. And I think Bayley did a great job, of really, making AJ Lee look good. And so even in Bayley's loss, she essentially kind of put over, AJ Lee, just because, I mean, you can see the ring rust. I mean, it's very apparent. I mean, being out, because it's like she was in, a couple tag match things, and then that brief little thing with Becky after the fact when she won the title and all that. But really, she, doesn't really have any actual feuds going on. Obviously, we've seen, Becky attack her after the match.
Yeah.
Which, I don't want to just see AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. I want to see at the very least a triple threat. Something. I don't want them to waste WrestleMania with a run back between Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. So.
But they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. I mean, I would get comfortable with the fact that that's the program. That's what they're gonna go with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we're gonna probably get subjected to that, but in the wise words of Tim, I went and took a shit. So that's what that match is going to mean to Tim. So we've finally seen Penta beat Dominic Mysterio a couple weeks back, and so he's basically, I feel like, kind of doing a similar open challenge, maybe we'll call it. And I hope that this is what he's been he's doing, and maybe this is my speaking about the experience of how many millions of times WrestleMania has done this, but that he's going to have some kind of open challenge, we'll call it, and 4 to 5 people come out, and then we end up with said ladder match at WrestleMania. I feel like that's how it's going to go. Because, there's a lot of people lined up, for Intercontinental Championship opportunities. Obviously Penta's been very forthcoming and, hey, come one, come all. Because he wants to be a fighting champion, unlike Dominic Mysterio, that, even not being injured, he still really wasn't doing a whole lot with his championships. We finally get a full match between Natty and Maxine Dupri, and it pretty much ends. I mean, Maxine Dupri has come a long way in the ring, but she's never going to be a match for, the veteran status that Natalya or Natty that she goes by now. Now, this is one thing I kind of want to pick apart because it doesn't make a whole hullabaloo of sense. But so we had a run back of Stephanie Vaquer versus Raquel Rodriguez, and obviously we had the recent, dismantling of Judgment Day, getting rid of Finn Balor, and so I don't know why, and I feel like this is another, another fault in the Judgment Day is that basically Liv Morgan's kind of screwed Raquel out of championships.
Yep.
And so I feel
Mhm.
like that Raquel is going to screw Liv Morgan over at WrestleMania and let
I
the
hope. Yeah.
dismantling of Judgment Day continue.
Hmm.
Because why are you keep on sending Raquel to to soften up the champion or whatever, or do these little matches like this, when I'd be pissed because you had times that you said, "Stay in back. I don't want your help. I want to do it on my own." And then you interject some way, and then she ends up losing. Raquel can't be cool with that. Okay, that's not cool. In the words of Carlito, that's not
Yep.
cool.
That's not cool. Yep. You're right.
And so I just feel like there has to be cracks in the armor of this relationship. So
Yeah.
now we get to the end of Raw, and obviously we get to deal with once again the meanderings and the blah blah blahs of Roman and CM Punk. And I have to say, words are can cut, but these promos are shit. I'm not into this. It's not even that I don't like CM Punk. It's not that I don't like Roman Reigns and their individual mic skills, but this feud of words is just nonsense. It's just like let's bring them to the last minute, last part of the show, and give them 10 minutes to meander and blah 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 back and forth, and then walk out of the ring and then do that again the next time. Like I don't. I'm not a real believer in this matchup. Now, do I
Mm.
want honestly Roman Reigns to win? Yeah. Do did have a lot of the words exchanged from either side had some validity? Yes. Has some of it been absolute nonsense? Yes. Has some of it crossed the line? Yes.
Hmm.
But I'm not really invested in this match. I and I honestly hope it just headlines night one. I don't want to be. I mean, we're probably going to get it night two, end of show, probably. But I would prefer to see Randy versus Cody. I feel like the build for that is a lot better than this senior citizen, chat off. Like, what's all they're missing is a podium. Like, you state your point. You have 30 seconds.
Yep.
So, um, now Now, SmackDown started off. Honestly, I'm actually more proud of SmackDown
Hmm.
this past week. I thought obviously they had the five matches, so they actually filled the card up. They had plenty of nonsensical segments that were exciting, were entertaining. They had you at the edge of your seat, and so I think this has probably been one of the better SmackDowns. And I'm overly critical about the shows, probably more than my co-parts. But I thought they did a good job last week. So now the night started off obviously with the whole brawl that broke out between Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu, and which obviously ended up leading us down into the ring and to do some more brawling. And basically they brawled throughout the night, which I thought was fun, like, because it's just like it's like when you needed filler, like, hey, let's just show Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu fighting. Like, oh, we got 5 minutes. Let's go get them.
Yeah.
so so it basically just happened throughout the night, which I again I thought was very entertaining. I thought it was good to not let Jacob Fatu get like the shaft in this little debacle they have going on. They both kind of equally got their own blows in, and they both essentially looked very over to me. And
Mhm.
again, this is probably another match we might see, which I think I'm all for, man. Give him, dude, give him a freaking street fight, dude. Bring it on, man. I want to see these guys brawl. I want to see these guys bust out, tables, ladders, chairs, kendo sticks, freaking shillelaghs, whatever, So like, I hope this happens. That's all I can
Mhm.
really say. Now we finally get a tag match between, or for the championships anyways, between Damian Priest and R-Truth. And now, because of, I mean, I guess they kind of do the Freebird-ish rule, I guess, with the MFTs, because it technically was Solo and I believe
Tonga.
Tonga, I think one of
Mhm.
them, yeah. But we had JC Mateo and Tama Tonga fight, and so I mean it was a great match. You know, all's well that ends okay, and obviously, R-Truth and Damian Priest obviously get the better of the situation, and and they're now the tag team champions, which I think is great. I think they have very realistic, authentic like chemistry in the ring, just obviously given like the Judgment Day past stuff and then the outside the Judgment Day stuff. And so like, good on them. Good on
Mhm.
them for putting R-Truth, putting a strap on them. Yes. Little
I,
victories.
yep.
Little victories for Frederick.
Yep. I have nothing bad to say about this. And if it is the last championship that R-Truth wins and he goes out at WrestleMania or there's after, well done, Ron Killings. Well done.
Yeah. So and and the general consensus of the MFTs losing the tag titles is because they continue to have this whole meandering feud with the Wyatt Six, and so get the straps off them. Go do whatever you got to do to figure out this whole back and forth rivalry thing over the lantern and all that stuff. Like, go let that be its own separate thing, and let the tag team division go do what the tag team division is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that this was the best thing they could have done, just because it's like it's really kind of getting kind of boring, with the MFTs, and then all of a sudden the YX6 are getting involved, and like, and there's just like, it's just over the top. And it's like, if you want, like, much like we've said in the past, where like, they can have this feud without belts, right? Like when we
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about, like, probably a year or so ago with like Roman versus The Rock, right? Like, they don't have to have titles to, they can just do what they do because of the caliber of the storyline. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the same thing with like this MFTs and the Wyatt Six and this whole lantern, and so like, I think we can let that fester and let it run its course, but let the tag team go back and thrive, because it's really been a lackluster men's tag team division on Raw and SmackDown. And so like, let's shake it up. And I'm perfectly okay with Damian Priest and R-Truth shaking that up. So,
Yeah.
good on him. I think that was a good creative decision. I think, at least I feel like, at least, they're getting a little bit better. So, um, now we had Motor City Machine Guns face off against Fraxium, which I don't really know what it was for. You kind of get lost a little bit, because the Motor City Machine Guns and Fraxium have kind of faded out of the main picture, I guess, for a while. And I'm gathering, maybe this is just a slow work towards, building teams to face off against, Damian Priest and R-Truth at WrestleMania. Um, Maybe this is emphasis on the tag team division, and again, trying to work us towards something bigger, because they did a tag team back to back, which was, I feel like it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, Motor City Machine Guns are very much veterans. Phyrexium is, they've been on the main roster for maybe a couple years, and they've definitely established themselves, which is great because they are that fast pace. They're the tag team you want in a fatal 4-way ladder match, whatever you
Mhm.
want to put it in, because you're going to get high flyers.
Yeah.
Now we get to the moment of the show when we finally get Randy Orton, basically to explain his wrongdoings to Cody, and I love that he's not apologetic. And like we said last week, he's the heel, but he's the heel in this situation, but the heel's more over than the face, and it's not, and has nothing to do with them. We disliking Cody, we dislike the position that WWE's put Cody in,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
but obviously it was to free up Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu, and I really hope that Cody's just a placeholder because I want to see the never seen number 15 for Randy Orton, because he needs to get out of the shadow of, Triple H that has 14 as well. And he needs to continue to move up the rungs of the ladder. I really think, in my heart of hearts, he
Mhm.
should end his career parallel to John Cena. And
So you're
I
saying two more
yeah,
championships?
I am.
So,
I
mm,
but I'm saying I in my hope, I would love to see him get, I guess technically, I guess after this one, I guess two more, but like I want to see him paralleled to John Cena because they're very paralleled individuals. They're parallel in their come up. Obviously one has legacy in his in a third generation versus John Cena, who obviously is not a any generation. And so like I think for me that's respectable to put those two on the same level. Um, I think they've given just as much to the business, if not more. John Cena's Mr. Make a Wish, but like, I think it's it's respectable enough to put them on the same level. Is my thought. But
yeah, I could see that, like Randy being John's contemporary. Um, yeah, I can, yeah.
so obviously, like I said, obviously we get the whole Randy Orton bit. Obviously he leaves, and then we lead into our next match, which was Aleister Black versus Sami Zayn. And man,
Yeah.
I I don't know what's going on with Sami Zayn. I feel like he has a heel inside him that he needs to let loose. Um, but I don't think we'll see it. He's kind of in limbo right now as far as creative. Um, Aleister Black basically takes advantage of a distracted Sami Zayn, which obviously you want like some I seen someone post that was like if you want to go ahead and dog on thinking wrestling's not real, and then they show the black mask kick that Sami Zayn got. like
Yeah,
like
I have to give both of those men their props. So Alistair Black was very precise with how he moved his foot mid swing so it would place on him. Yes, there's impact and force, but it to me it felt really controlled. Like almost like I'm going to put my foot onto your face as fast as I can, but the goal is to push you and the selling is on you. And
right.
Sammy was in position. Sammy sold it and it looked I that was a very very nice black mass,
Yeah.
and everybody in the ring did their job, you know, including Zelina when she rolls in to celebrate and to go gloat or
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
and I'm perfectly okay with kind of Zelina Vega kind of just being a background character right now.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a while ago about, I hate to use the botch word, but like, just some concerns, I guess, of, the safety in the ring. And I guess if I think honestly she's probably content doing what she's doing. I mean, you know what, you're doing work with your husband, dude. Like, you're having fun, and maybe we get her down the road, back in the ring as a singles competitor, not just a background character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so we get Jade Cargill comes out, and obviously followed by Rhea Ripley, and man, I it's hard to like take Jade seriously when she's standing across from Rhea Ripley, who's more than well established as one of the top women in professional wrestling. And it's hard to, you know, basically think that it's honestly believable in Jade being the champion, right? And I know we've talked a million times over, like, this is there. She's just playing the character that she's given. She's doing whatever she's asked to do, which really isn't a whole lot. Um, and so we get this whole you know debacle, and then as Jade's leaving the ring after their little conversation, we get BFAB and Michin come out, and you know even we've all seen the whole Michin BFAB, like that whole crap a couple months ago, with Jade Cargill basically pummeling both of them, putting them on the shelf for a little bit, and now they've kind of come back, and it kind of caught me off guard because like I try not to, because I watch it after the fact, because I do
Mm-hmm.
lift on Fridays and everything, and Saturdays, and so like I'm watching things after the fact. But sometimes I'll stay off social media. I wanna watch the show and actually like be surprised as much as if I was watching it live.
Right.
And so we get this turn of BFAB and Michin on Rhea Ripley, and now we get this pairing of two background characters with Jade Cargill, and maybe this is to get them some screen time, maybe to put them in some kind of storyline. Um, but I don't know really honestly what the point of this is. I don't see this pairing doing much when Rhea beats Jade Cargill at WrestleMania.
You know,
Um,
I think with this pairing, it makes it challenging for Rhea to come out as the winner. I got to see how the next couple of weeks um, kind of evolve to see what my final answer would be.
mhm.
But giving some supporting characters to Jade, I think would help her character, and it is also a throwback to what she was doing in AEW when she's already had a baddie section, um, and it could tell a a bigger story with Michin and BFAB, um, kind of breaking out on their own or being more like um, Kairi Sane when she's with Asuka.
Yeah.
It could work out like that. But having the numbers game does tell a bigger story for them going into WrestleMania. Like, how does Rhea overcome the odds, or how does Jade use her newfound alliance to hold on to her championship and um, change the narrative of what being a dominant champion looks like. And at the end of the day, it's still a wrestling, it playbook trope, where the bad guy always needs backup, uh, to hold on to their championship. Um, so I want to see how this plays out. Hopefully, WWE uh, changes the script a little bit, where the baddies don't cost her the championship. Um, and either Jade loses cleanly on her own, or Rhea loses, or
Yeah.
yeah, Rhea loses cleanly on her own without outside interference.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what I would like to see. Either one of them lose cleanly.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we've been having, the United States Open Challenge thing that's been going on, but I feel like it's running out of good competition. I think it would be nice to see like some NXT call ups, maybe some people from different shows. But we just get a run back with Ilya Dragunov again, and it's not that I don't like Ilya Dragunov,
Hmm.
but like this is getting kind of stale. Like it's lost its luster when he didn't know who he was fighting against as the Open Challenge went in the past. And now it's like we're just getting some conversation back and be like, all right, you get a shot. Like, and it's the same people. This is the exact dilemma when I said about the women's intercontinental, you know, episodes and episodes ago,
Hmm.
about circling the same handful of people, and it just becomes less interesting. And again, it's not that I don't like Ilya Dragunov. I just think Ilya Dragunov should be chasing something else. Um, but again, if they don't have anything for him, I guess whatever. But like, I feel like, there has to be more to this open challenge than just picking out somebody every week. And it's like Nick Aldis is kind of a goon. Oh, it's not the Miz. Oh, but no, we'll just give the same fucker we gave the last 12 attempts with. And it's just like you got to mix it up a little bit. And like this was probably honestly the only, the real downfall. Like I said, I loved this is probably one of the better SmackDowns with the exception of this lackluster open challenge. Um, but and then we get this random segment which I I know you don't care. You could care less for Kit Wilson and Jelly Roll. You've been very outspoken and don't hold back when it comes to this. But it wasn't the best segment that I've ever seen, but it was really funny, right? It
Right.
and Jelly Roll said some things. I mean, Kit Wilson wanted a slam poetry, and Jelly Roll did not hold back with slam poetry. And man, I really hope this turns into a match and not a WrestleMania. Probably maybe we get it on SmackDown next week or something, or 2 weeks down the road. I don't know. I don't know. I just want to see this happen, right? Not
Right.
not for any grandiose reason or I want some storyline out of this. Like, no, I just want to see Jelly Roll literally just beat the shit out of Kit Wilson because
Yeah. I, you
we,
know,
we we like Kit Wilson because this the whole music and everybody's kind of getting invested in Kit Wilson, but it's toxic, unintended. So yeah, so our basically last match of the evening was the Irresistible Forces versus the Bella Twins, and I don't get how I the Bella Twins talk about chasing tag team gold and then just disappear for 4 to 5 weeks and then all of a sudden come back and interject themselves, and obviously this ends in a no contest, which again was no surprise with Charlotte and Alexa Bliss at ringside. And so, this basically, if I had to pull a recipe out of WWE, it's just gonna be a triple threat at WrestleMania.
I think,
or a fatal four way. Um,
yeah, I
you
think
know,
that that is probably a good call on WWE because it stacks the card. Everybody's working. Um, and if the irresistible forces do walk out of that, it makes them look as dominant as possible. They somehow survived a triple threat or a fatal four way and held on to, obviously it's held on to their championships. It just gives them more bragging rights to why they're, why they're the team to beat and why it's hard for you or anyone to beat them. So I think that is a good call, and I think that it should it should happen.
yeah. I mean, it's again, it's the recipe that they've used. So like, this isn't anything new. This build up. Obviously, again, on the cusp of 4 weeks away from WrestleMania. Like, obviously, this is really nothing surprising. It's the same recipes, different wrestlers. You know, that's pretty much how it usually goes. And you know what? If that's ends in a triple threat, fatal four way, whatever. But I also would like to see, because I would like to see this particular matchup go at least multiple brands. I don't want them to just go to WrestleMania or whatever and have it only be SmackDown involved, right? Just because
Mhm.
it's a tri-branded essential, like the women's tag team titles is three branded, right? It's NXT, it's Raw, and it's SmackDown. So like I would like to see some representation from all the brands if they're going to do such matchup. Um, but I don't feel like they probably won't, and it sucks, but I feel like that's just what they're gonna do, and it's unfortunate, but WWE has not exactly been playing the best games as of late. So
Mhm.
now we get to the end of the evening. Obviously, we get Randy Orton out again, which any time Randy Orton's in the ring, it's a good time. And obviously he had beef with Matt Cardona, during one of his, rant segments, I guess you could say. Um, and the whole mess happens, and honestly, like, what did you expect? If you wanted your heel guys, so Randy doing heel things,
Mhm.
and ends up basically putting Cardona's arm in a chair, boom boom, done, like, see you next Tuesday.
Mm.
and and so I mean, and then it's like all that's happening, and then all of a sudden they show Drew and Jacob Fatu like on one of these like building things or whatever and back, and then they show them going at it, and then it basically kind of like, so like the, Nick Aldis is like, well, I got something else to deal with, and so like
Mhm.
they show him running to the back, and then basically you see Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu like whatever go off this building, and they obviously had it behind a fence, so obviously they probably had freaking Serta mattresses down there,
Yeah.
but it was a good shot, and so that's how the show ended. But so I don't know if I want to say, the segment of "Are you in or you're out?" I think more or less just I want to break this stuff down just a smidgy.
Mhm.
Um, but so obviously on Raw, obviously we had the you know Oba family putting over Brock, right? And
Other
and
way
I
around. But yes, yes,
yeah,
you're right. Um,
and so I don't think Oba Femi is like doing anything with Seth Rollins. I think this is purely his own thing, and I think this is a way to put over him, for Brock to basically put over Obafemi and basically being the next big thing. And I think that's all this is about. It just happened to be like that they overlapped the Seth Rollins, stuff in this,
Hmm.
but Obafemi's no one's sidekick. So,
Yeah. Yep.
um, so I definitely think, this is a sign of, things to come. I mean, a lot of veterans, have no problem, putting over the fresh talent, because it's respectable, right? It's you've seen it, for decades. Obviously, when you have your legends, veterans, whatever you want to call them, kind of, you know, pass the torch, right?
Yeah.
And so I definitely think this is a passing of the torch situation because I honestly see Obafemi beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
I
And
yeah, don't I don't know. Do I want to see Brock Lesnar lose at WrestleMania? Yep, I sure do. But do I think it is Obafemi's role to beat Brock Lesnar?
it's
Given the track record that WWE has had with Brock Lesnar in WrestleMania, Brock is only going to put over people that he finds worthy, and that WWE can and WWE's creative can really market them and really push them. To me, it's like putting Obafemi with Brock Lesnar now early in his main roster career seems to be a desperate move. Also, too,
I
Brock
mean, yeah,
Lesnar doesn't he doesn't give up a lot of wins.
yeah. Well, and I mean, I think creatively, yes, it is obviously with Brock doing an open challenge. Obviously, it's box office no matter how you do it. You know, and so it's desperate, but it's like at least they have something to like to put on it though. It's not Brock Lesnar versus like Seth Rollins or some freaking wackadoo. It's against a mountain of a man. And so like, however you wanted to pivot this, or desperation or whatever, like at least it's a worthy competitor. And in for all intents purposes, maybe this ain't a very long match. And they've done it with, Brock and Goldberg before. They've done it with, many other, big, wrestlers. And maybe we just see like a 7-8 minute match of just them going back and forth, going, watching him trying to give Obafemi an F5 and he like stands back up or something. I mean, I think this is at least a good opportunity, um, to utilize the upstart that is Obafemi. Now, so with Roman and CM Punk, like I kind of touched on before, is that I don't have much stock in this matchup. And I'm not a huge fan of CM Punk, and I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of Roman, but I feel like Roman's gonna bring better matchups. Um, and when we get a Braun Breaker back, I think this is definitely something worthy of, um, something in the later in the year, maybe SummerSlam, maybe Survivor Series, maybe something down the line. I would rather see Braun Breaker versus Roman Reigns, kind of spear for spear, as it were, than see CM Punk keep on holding it on. And I mean, literally, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes are like carbon copies. They
Just
are two
yeah,
sides of the same coin. It's
yeah.
it's it's what do you want to talk about versus is it great to be alive? Like I don't like the repetitive gimmick bullshit. It's it's not surprising. It's like you're basically reading off a prompt, the same thing week in and week out, you know. And I could care less for CM Punk. I could care less for Cody Rhodes. They've run their course. I want to move on. CM Punk, retire your old ass, and like Cody, you did what you wanted to do and you accomplished it. Now you can leave, and I'm not saying I like despise either one of them like as a performer. I just think they've run their course. We have a lot of men and women, in the wings of Evolve, NXT, current main roster. We have a lot to build on. And you look at the age of the roster, and you have all these old champions. And 40's not old in regular average person. 40 is old in wrestling age. Just
I
to
think
like
it's
clear that.
because of the type of activity that people are doing. But I would like to say that you don't start hitting a stride in pro wrestling until you're about 10 years in. And then, depending on when you started, you have a lot less years in front of you than you have behind you.
Uh-huh.
So it's hard. It's like I think it's a constant battle of how well the human takes care of their body versus what other humans are asking them to do with their bodies when it comes to
Mm.
professional wrestling. You know, a Hell in a Cell match, and then, Elimination Chamber, and then Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Shit, that's probably a year off of your career. Or
Yeah.
at least two. You ain't
Yeah.
you ain't
No,
you ain't normal after that.
no, and like, and the thing is, the commentators, they talk about it, in almost kind of like a serious, like almost like a cliche way when they say like these matches can take years off your career. I mean, they say it as a cliche, but it's also a fact. You look at the people that have, gone the distance, whether it's the Hardy Boys in TLC matches,
right,
or you have Undertaker in Hell in a Cell, you have Triple H Hell in a Cell, you have Three Stages of Hell back when they were good, not shit like the recent one. Like, you look at these people that have really given to the business. Mick Foley being probably the top one.
right.
He gave fucking an ear for freaking WWE. So like, and so, you know, like I said, 40 is old in like wrestling years, right?
Hmm.
And because a lot of, honestly, the wrestlers that began in the business back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whenever they started doing professional wrestling, they were starting in their 30s, right? So like,
Right.
but so they were going 30 to like 45, 50, and that was normalcy. But obviously now we have careers that could span 25 years and still not even be 50, right? So we have a lot of younger talent that we can figure out. And
But it also literally it takes time. You can't.
well,
I
I'm not
don't
saying
care
I'm not, I'm
how.
not saying like jump it right now. I'm just saying like there needs to be, like at least some kind of segue, in the next like 3-4 years, where we start seeing a little bit of change up.
I think yearly we can do with 3 or 4 people being called up, 5 or 6 people being called down, a couple of people moving to part time, um, and really building, really doing like 3-year investments with people on the main roster. They do a year and a half in NXT and they've got it and they're just like amazing. And then they start to grow and then they start to have these matches. I would say Obafemi losing to Brock Lesnar would probably be more harmful than good, but it wouldn't be the end of his career.
Right.
It would definitely be like, we got to take a step back and rebuild you, and
Yeah,
do some other things, as
and
opposed to just making him as dominant as possible.
yeah,
But
and
at the same time, I just don't know when it comes to Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. It could go either way. And one, I would be like, it tracks and it figures. The other, I would be like, oh shit, wow, that's
yeah,
new, that's refreshing, that's hopeful.
yeah,
But it there would have to be momentum. Obafemi literally would have to challenge CM Punk or Roman Reigns for a championship, and he would have to win. And do you want to put a championship on Obafemi this early in his career when there are veterans who they've
yeah,
spent close to 2 years building up for championship runs, like
yeah,
Jacob Fatu? I don't
yeah,
know about that, bro.
yeah. I
I
mean, yeah,
it's
there's the guys that are in kind of they're kind of in the limbo years,
Mhm.
that haven't, really gotten the opportunities, right?
Right.
Especially like, like Sami Zayn, right?
Hmm.
I mean he's been pivoted around left, right, north, south, east to west, more times than we can count.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, there's definitely should be a scenario that's played out when Sami Zayn wins a championship, because a lot of the things he's been saying in Back to Cody, are very valid, right? And so, a lot of what Sammy's saying, although there's a script to it, like there is some validity to the things Eddie says. you
Hmm.
know I mean, and the thing is, and it points back to the generational wrestlers, right? That they seem to get more opportunities because they're a second, third, whatever generation wrestler, and they seem to get the more opportunities. And I think, I really honestly think, though, like with Sami Zayn, like I I want to see like the I want to see like the Sami Zayn of old. I want to see him like in like that military gear with like the military hat. Like I want to see a little bit of character change for Sami Zayn, to express his genuine frustration, much like with Drew, and to weasel his way into some kind of championship, in the near future. Um, but whatever they're doing in back with him in kind of these segments, and his frustration. I mean, it's they did that with Drew too, and Drew became a champion, obviously, during the pandemic, obviously. But like, so I think like some of it is just that the characters are just not there yet. And that's really not the fault of the wrestler, that's the fault of creative, right? Because they're the ones that do all the work. They're the ones that say, do X, do Y, do Z, do this, say that, and so I'll be more excited. Honestly, I'm more excited to see Sami Zayn be a champion than like I was worried about Cody. Much like you with R-Truth, right? Like you would
Hmm.
rather see the guy that you like, that hasn't got his shots in and hasn't gotten his
Yeah.
opportunities. You would want to see them become champion, right? And obviously R-Truth's a little bit different because obviously he's been in the business longer than pretty much anybody on the freaking roster. And so and so like I but it's like Sammy still has plenty of years in him. I hope
That we
he
know
finished
of.
his story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I hope that he finishes his story, as it were, right?
Yeah.
Because he's been chasing it. He's had some minuscule opportunities here and there. Um, but I just feel like they have to at least make him a champion at some point. I feel like the
But yeah,
same.
but like, what does it take? I mean,
Yeah, that's the
but
$1,000,000 question.
it
You know,
it also comes down to, what if, there's certain characters that they're just never going to be the champion, because what is envisioned for them is careers that are defined by the adversity, not by,
yeah,
winning that prize. And if that's the case, that's probably what we're looking at for like an R-Truth or for Sami Zayn. Um, when, but yet Kevin Owens gets a couple of championship runs. Uh, and I think that that is not an enjoyable, or in my opinion, a respectable outcome. It just isn't. So I wish that wasn't the case. I wish a lot of favorites and even a couple of heels that never got championship runs were able to get those, even if they were short, a few weeks with a championship.
yeah,
Um, it's just something to say, like, you've been here 20 years, bro. Yeah, we got to celebrate you somehow, some way,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I 100% agree. It's and it's tough because you want to root for who you root for, um,
Yep.
but it's yeah.
It's tough.
So I did look at so for Raw tomorrow, we basically get Brock basically coming out after the fact of last week, and then we actually do get the Usos versus Austin Theory and Logan Paul for the titles, and that's all that's in the books right now. Um, and it looks like SmackDown, we're gonna get Kit Wilson versus Jelly Roll. And then we do have Julia versus Tiffany Stratton for the Women's United States. And then we see Alexa Bliss and Charlotte versus the Bella Twins, which obviously is to basically lead up to the championship. So I mean, you know what? There is stuff that needs to happen, and there's stuff that we hope happened, and sometimes we're disappointed, but that is the business, and you know that is just what being a fan is, and we get the opportunity to come on here and just share our thoughts. And so I think whatever happens, we're okay with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you always want your horse to win, right? I mean, you always want your team to win, your whatever, and so we'll just enjoy the ride, right? We'll just
Hmm.
enjoy the journey, and we will stick a pin in this as we do, and we will be back next week, hopefully with Tim back, and so we can basically get another insider, on how we feel about things. So we will see you guys next week. Hopefully we have some matches in the cooker for WrestleMania beyond the 5 we have. So we will just wait and see, because that is all we can do. So
Yep.
this is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.